Okay, well, they're having the warm-up racks at the moment, so while they're doing that, we'll have a look at what else is going on. Remember, this is second round, so you get through this and you're in winners qualification. And there you can see Billy Thorpe leading 7-4 against Chen Chen Wei. Gary Wilson swiftly back into action. He was on the main table a little earlier. And he's up against the former World Masters runner-up Loh Ho Sum. That one's level at 3-all at the moment. Johan Chua has been in a real battle with Boris Ivanovsky. And it's coming down to a close finish on table 3. That one is 7-all. You can see the finish of it on WNT TV. Tables 1 to 3 covered there throughout. Georgi Georgiev, the Seattle Open champion, is on the hill at 8-7 against South African JJ Fall. And Petri Makinen and Nikos Economopoulos, they've been involved in a tight one all the way. It's level at 7-all. Moritz Neuhausen has turned things around in his match. Didn't get off to a great start, but leading now 5-4. Emil Gangflo of Norway, a player who perhaps might have achieved a bit more over the last couple of years, we would have been expecting, after the runs that he had and the results he achieved a couple of seasons ago. Well, he's leading 5-2 against the experienced Swiss player, Michael Schneider. Mohamed Soufi there, former World Championship finalist.
Germany produces so many great young talents, and looking at him from not too far away, he's certainly on the young side and obviously talented to be at 7-7 with Johan Chua.
Yeah, we're going to have a look in there actually, and you can also see Riku Rompainen then, the young Finnish player, leading 7-3 against Aydin Pikniak, who has been Sanjin Pelovanović's partner in years gone by in the World Cup for Bosnia-Herzegovina. Yeah, Ivanovsky keeping the pressure on Chua, who had such a wonderful 2024, was runner-up in this event. And then a few weeks later went one better at the Hanoi Open, where he won the title. Well, on table 3 there, Chua managed to make contact but couldn't get it safe. So Ivanovsky with a chance to get to the hill first here. a much less experienced opponent, and it's been a bit of a landslide. But there have been a few scares as well for some of the more established names. If Ivanovski was to actually get over the line and finish this, though, it would be certainly the biggest story of the tournament so far. Big year for Johan Chua. A lot more expectation on him now. So we'll keep you up to date on that, obviously, because that's a very big story potentially developing. Back here, though, it is Ko Pin-Yi and Scott Frost ready to get things underway. And Ko Pin-Yi, world champion 10 years ago this year, will strike the first ball. I know it's hard to put a figure on it, Jeremy, but in percentage terms, what sort of a chance do you give Scott of causing an upset here?
Well, I mean, probably a bit more than most. I mean, it is 9-ball first off, and I think tactically, you know, Scott's not that far behind. Even though, you know, of course, Ko Pin-Yi very good tactically, but Scott, you know, a guy that plays all disciplines very well, and he's going to keep up in that regard. You know, ball pocketing, of course, you got to give that to Ko Pin-Yi. Even if Scott was playing all the time, just Ko Pin-Yi's that great when it comes to the tough shot. It's all about Scott just getting some chances to settle in, but I think it's, you know, 20–25%. For a point in this match to be able to win it, unless we see some very uncharacteristic mistakes from Ko Pin-Yi. And you can bet Ko Pin-Yi's not going to take anything for granted when it comes to his opponent, as he rarely does. Looks like Boris has gotten to the hill first. Him and Johan Chua. We'll keep you updated there. Just wants to get to the center of the table. The 6 is a little odd. Likes this heavy angle to be able to play the cue ball back and forth. Now, does he come all the way past the 9? That would be ideal. That's what he's kind of looking at now. Of course, that's a long way to travel. If you overhit it, you could end up on the cushion. I kind of like coming tight myself, maybe 2 rails at the 9. Don't know if that's going to be quite as much speed as he wanted, but should be okay. Got to simplify here, come across the table. Wants to stay off the rail with the cue ball, though. And now he's got to make some kind of decision to kill this cue ball. Maybe even come around and play short side on the 8. Dug into that nicely. Got to come tight out of the corner. Sometimes the angle's foolish, Michael, of course, from up in the booth, but nothing fooled Ko Pin-Yi here in rack number 1.
Well, we saw his brother Ko Ping-chung on this table only about 40 minutes or so ago, getting through. He struggled early on, really quite badly. Improved as it went on and got through comfortably in the end against Labanon Markaj. But no early struggles for Ko Pin-Yi. He's very swiftly into a 1-0 lead. So this is the second round. trying to get into winners qualification. Nikos Economopoulos is one rack away from doing that. He leads Petri Mäkinen, a UK Open semi-finalist last year, 8-7. Emil Gangflo of Norway, 5-3 up on Michael Schneider. Georgi Georgiev on the hill, 8-7 against JJ Fall. So the South African giving him a closer contest than perhaps might have been expected. Riku Rompainen is 8-3 up on Aydin Pikniak. And as we've said, Boris Ivanovsky leading 8-7 over Johan Chua. So potentially a big story developing there. Gary Wilson has won rack 7 to lead Lo Ho Sum, 4-3 now. Moritz Neuhausen continuing to turn it around against Arseny Sevastianov, 6-4 now to the German. And Billy Thorpe is on the hill, 8-5 against Chen Chen Wei. Christian Surdeo of Romania, 5-4 up on the former World Championship runner-up Mohamed Soufi. And Ko Ping Han, already a ranking event winner this year, has a 3-1 lead over Tang Ching Ting. Meanwhile, his brother is breaking up 1-0 up.
You can see Ko Ping Yi here in rack number 2. A lot of breaking runs here in the last however long. Of course, SVB put together maybe 7 during his win over Drago. I couldn't really keep up with that number, but looks like young Boris from Germany is on a breaking run to end this match. He's got the 6, 7, 8, 9 left. A little bit of a shot on the 6 just to get position on the 7. The 6 is a hanger, but he may have overhit this. Yeah, he's overamped, so good chance that Chua is going to get back to the table, maybe off of a snooker, but we'll see.
Very swift finish to the second rack. Ko Ping Yi picking out the 2-9 combination and making it. So already he leads Scott Frost by 2 racks to 0.
And Michael, just looking around the room, you know, the argument, and I'm sure you've had this in many different sports, everything you've always covered, is what era was better, right? I mean, but I'm looking around the room, and I still believe the great players from years ago would have been great players today, really the upper echelon as well. But there's so many more great players now. I think that's the big difference, whether it's been the information age or just the sport growing. But I'm just looking from table to table, and I just see quality after quality after quality. And not only with just one player at the table, but most of the tables with both. Really incredible where pool's gone.
I think the fact we have so many events of this sort of scale now, and that's been the way over the last few years, there are so many more players now who've experienced what it's like to come and play in these, and not just that, but to win matches in them. And you look at the number of different players we've seen in last 16, last 32 of big events in the last 2 or 3 years. It's a huge number, and once you've done that once, it gives you a huge amount of belief. You go from thinking you can do it at this level to knowing you can do it at this level. And the more big tournaments you have, the more players you bring into that bracket. And this is one of the best of them all for many years now. And he's off to a fine start. Ko Ping Yi leading 2-0.
Yeah, and you know, it's those great players that are making all these youngsters so great, also learning from them. But when you do so many sports, is there any more of a worldwide sport than 9-ball pool?
We've talked about this, haven't we? What would be up there with it? And the one I always compare it to is tennis. If you go to one of the big Grand Slam tennis events, the spread of nationalities is big, but I don't know if it's any bigger than this, you know. We've got nearly 50 countries represented here this week.
Yeah, and I think we're probably missing some that, you know, a good 10 or 12 countries that we could say easily could have a player or two here, or should be here rather.
So Scott Frost, who will be 50 later in the year, beat Sergio Lagunas Moreno earlier today.
Yeah, that department, kicking at the ball, safety-wise, all that. Scott's gonna hold his own. Just if he can get that first kind of open shot to get the arm a little loose, running the balls. And said he broke the balls really well in that win, so that's a good sign if he can get to that end of the table.
Frost just can't get to the table at all at the moment. It's been a dominant start from Ko Pin-Yi. 35 years of age now. Ranked number 10 in the world.
Well, the youngster Boris is scratched on a kick shot after a beautiful safety from Johan Chua. Now this is just for Chua to make it heel-heel, but he's got ball in hand with 3 balls left. So we're looking at a case game scenario there.
World champion, as I said, in 2015, beat Shane Van Bonen in the final in Doha, and the very next week he teamed up with Chang Yu-Long to win the World Cup of Pool, completing an extraordinary September. He's become something of a World Championship specialist. He's made it to the last 16 9 times. And that title in 2015 is still the only time he's gone past the quarters of the World Championship. What a fine start he's making here. Scott Frost did at least get to the table in that one, but not for long. So Ko Pin-Yi continues his dominant start to this match. He leads by 3 racks to 0. It has now gone hill-hill between Boris Ivanovsky and Johan Chua. Mentioned his World Championship win, his World Cup win. Ko Pin-Yi has also, much more recently in fact, been a winner of the World Masters. Played so well to triumph at Brentwood almost 2 years ago now. Really, we talked for so long about the 2 Ko brothers. Well, there are 3 of them now who are prominent players on the world stage. Ko Ping-Han has already been a ranking event winner this season and has reached the last 32 of each of the last 3 Matchroom Open events. So he's certainly one to add on the list of players who could make a big breakthrough this year. Petri Makinen and Nikos Economopoulos, 2 very experienced players, have gone hill-hill on table 4. And it's also level between Gary Wilson and Loh Ho Sum, but that's at a much earlier stage. 4 all in that. Moritz Neuhausen a couple of racks away. He leads Arseny Sevastianov 7-4. It's a big day for Scott Frost, but he just can't get involved so far. Ko Pin-Yi looking strong and leading 3-0.
Now, speak of the devil, it shall appear. It's going to be a tricky run out here for Scott, but obviously an easy starter on the 1 with the blue 2 near. But after that, the 3-7 gets a little tricky. The 5 is over the pocket, so they may help things. We'll work with the rack from our referee. They've been great here so far in Bosnia. Haven't heard any complaints from the players.
Right, let's see what Scott Frost can do here. Something to go at last. How do you think he'll deal with this, being out there on the main table in front of the cameras? Because it's not something he's accustomed to, even with all his experience in the game.
Yeah, I think this is actually his first international play ever.
First event outside the US.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All right, nice shot there, coming back and forth. I think the kiss shot on the 7. You know, it's whether or not the game or the pool gods or Ko Pin-Yi himself ever give him a chance to get into that kind of working mentality, you know, where you're kind of doing your own work and you kind of start to forget about the cameras or the situation, or, you know, it dilutes it a bit. But that one he would like to have back.
Yeah, the one thing I would say, obviously he spent a lot of time with us on the television side over the last couple of years. Now, I know that's very different to playing, but it maybe just makes cameras and the TV lights that little bit less daunting when you're used to being under them, albeit in a very different context. But it didn't serve him well with that shot, and Ko Pin-Yi is back to the table with a chance for 4-0 here. Johan Chua, meanwhile, has got a 9-ball to get it done against Boris Ivanovsky, something which was in real doubt for much of the afternoon.
Yeah, Boris had his chance to finish it with a break and run, but didn't do it. And there in return, Johan Chua with a break and run at Hill Hill.
Ko Pin-Yi making it all look very easy here at the moment. Gliding around the table in that style that he does when he's in full flow.
Yeah, the stroke looks really long, and that's always a good sign for the player at that table, but not so much for their opponent.
And very, very swiftly, Ko Pin-Yi has moved into a 4-0 lead. So that win for Chua takes him through to winners qualification, where he will play the young Finn, Riku Rompainen, after his 9-3 win over Aidin Pikniach. Now, we had this earlier, Jeremy, with Carl. Here's a question for you. So single elimination in these Matchroom Open events and the World Championship is the last 64. So across all those Matchroom Big Field events in 2024, how many players do you think made single elimination in all of them? I know you're not going to know, but it's more a question of estimating. Carl gave a lot of thought to this earlier. So final 64, single elimination. We're talking UK Open, World Championship, European Open, US Open, Hanoi Open. How many players made that final 64 in all of those events last year?
Well, I feel like you brought it up because it's not as big a number as I think it is. But
you see, you know me so well, Jake.
Yeah, maybe 12?
Well, you went a lot lower than Carl, but still too high. He reckoned 38.
Oh.
The actual number is 9.
Well, yeah, I was thinking it was a low number, but
yeah. But if I hadn't asked you that, you probably would have thought it was a lot more than 12. So 9 is surprising, isn't it?
Yeah, but I took finite math in high school, and I know how those numbers tend to drop quickly and how odds work. So usually you're always shocked at those types of questions, and your first thought, of course, is usually way off. I'm not saying I was great at finite math in high school, but I took it.
I think this is something we need to discuss further as the week goes on. Yeah, the reason I mention it here is because Ko Pin-Yi was one of those players who made single elimination in all the events. And it wasn't until late in the year that he started having a couple of good runs in them. Quarterfinals of the US Open. He was beaten by Niels Feyen, the man he replaced as world champion 10 years ago. And then, of course, in Hanoi, looked like he was going out in the quarterfinals again when he was 9-6 down to the holder Jason Shaw, but to the final where Johan Chua ended his run. He was also on the Asia team that won the Reyes Cup in Manila the following week. Singles. And just to let you know about that other Hill that was going on, Petri Mäkinen, who we saw in the semi-finals of the UK Open in Telford last year, where we'll be going back to in a few weeks' time, has beaten Nikos Economopoulos 9-8. So Mäkinen goes through to face Alexa Peschelj, the US Open semi-finalist the year before last.
Yeah, two interesting names with Petri and, of course, Economopoulos. Both of them trying to get that game back. And it seems like Nico taking a little longer, but he is creeping into that position. What a talent. And I've always thought Petri, right before pandemic, was coming on as one of the best players in Europe. And for a couple years, didn't hear a whole lot. That semifinal last year, didn't play his best in that semifinal by any means, but played an incredible tournament to get there.
Yeah, and he's won a ranking event since then.
Little punchy there, and we were paying attention to the opening shot of this rack. may tell you about what kind of form Copigny feels like he's in. Made a very difficult one ball, kind of like a half drag shot kind of stroke. Looked very easy from distance. I think he's probably the best at that kind of shot anyways. But one thing that'll get you in gear, you know, to try and play your best pool and not only win this match here, but win future matches and try and take down the title is not backing off. You know, you have to play like you're in dead stroke. You have to make decisions like you're in dead stroke. That's the only way to maintain it and maybe get to that point if you're a little off.
Yeah, and I think we saw a couple of players on the main table yesterday who didn't do that and ended up trailing off really in terms of their level of performance. So Copigny is absolutely sailing along here. We saw Shane Van Boening completely in no time at all, already past the halfway point in his quest for those 9 racks that he needs. Now, Jeremy, I often marvel at your ability to keep an eye on so many matches all at once. Well, I'm sure you'll be keeping an eye on table 3. Young American player Sam Henderson is just warming up to face Dutchman Jan van Lierop, who we saw get to the last 16 in Hanoi about 18 months ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam, a genuinely great young man and a guy that's coming along. We did a little work over the holidays together. I went up to Iowa for a few days to see some friends and work with Sam, and it was a true pleasure. And you know, he's just like any other pool player. He's got a lot of confidence right now, so he's going to be a dangerous player even at a young 18 years old.
And I know keeping an eye on all the Americans, the big names and the young prospects was a big part of your brief when you were Mosconi Cup captain. But I sense that even though you're not in that job anymore, you're still just as keen to keep on top of everything that's going on with the Americans coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, I got to make a living and take care of my own family, but, you know, I wish I could spend even more time trying to influence any of these players in any kind of positive way possible. But yeah, it's good just to follow them and see how well they're doing. There's so many young players in America, both male and female, that are so talented and in a lot of good hands as well.
And one of the more experienced Americans, Billy Thorpe, has been a winner in the last few minutes by 9 racks to 6 against Chen Chen Wei. Thorpe will now play João Grillo of Portugal for a place in single elimination.
Well, I think if you talk about in form, I think Billy Thorpe is playing the best pool of his life day in, day out. And just one tough guy, and he's got the heart of a lion, and that's going to be a heck of a match. I got to watch Grillo right in front of us, just down below yesterday. He's breaking the balls great, playing with a lot of confidence. Probably didn't have his best year last year, considering what we saw just prior to that, 23 and then to 22, but should be a good match to watch. Okay, down 5-0. Not facing anything easy, but to get back in matches, you got to make big shots, and here's one of them for Freezer. There you go. Now nothing easy. I don't think he shoots at the 3-9 combination. Pretty low percentage. Not sure what kind of options he has. Now, can he clip off the left side, his left side of the 3, and run the cue ball 2 rails around the 6? Play a safety behind the pink? Something like that. Yeah, oh, he didn't want the 3 to catch the 9. That wasn't part of the equation, and this is going to leave a lot more of a rail first shot than he wanted. And a guy, when it comes to rail first, is absolutely one of the best on the planet. Yeah, you see him kind of elevating. The side pocket is kind of the natural location for the rail first, so he may have to, yeah, you can see he's trying to swerve into that angle. And he overdid it. So here you go, Scott Frost, ball in hand. One thing we did talk about, though, is Scott talking about I need to slow down. I can feel myself in a hurry. And, you know, when you're down 5-0, you know, that can kind of be in an exponential kind of situation, trying to get games back in a hurry, and that doesn't do you any favors. So you got to really be aware of what's going on by yourself at the table.
Be 50 years of age this summer. As you said, he's a bit of an all-rounder. He's got plenty of pedigree in 9-ball. He's been as far as, well, equivalent, let's say, to last 16 stage of the US Open in the past.
Yeah, and probably hasn't played that many US Opens in his career. I would bet less than double digits.
Well, now that we know you're an advanced math student, I think we'll definitely take you at your word on that one. Big moments these then for Scott Frost. His first tournament outside the US. He finds himself on the main table against someone who won one of the biggest titles in the game less than 2 years ago. And he's got a chance here to put a rack beside his name.
Yeah, he caught the 6 a little thin to the pocket. That's why he overran on the 7. So having to play the 8 up long. But these kind of shots can give you some confidence. Like to see what he can do here after getting these down with the break, and maybe put a little heat on Copigny.
You can't generate heat when you're a freezer, JJ.
Well, maybe put him on ice. Is that a better one?
Nice. And he's done that in very cool fashion. Scott Frost taking his opportunity. Copigny's lead is trimmed ever so slightly to 5-1. 10 Bulgarians in the field. The most prominent of them is Georgi Georgiev, who was a ranking event winner on the World 9-Ball Tour last year. Well, Georgiev was pushed hard by JJ4, but he's won by 9 racks to 7, so he's through to winners qualification, where he will face Mark Bijsterbosch, who of course was 1 rack away from winning the Spanish Open the summer before last. Loh Ho Sum and Gary Wilson are involved in a really good match on table 22, and Loh is just edged ahead once again there at 6-5. Moritz Neuhausen looking for a couple more. Still 7-5 against Arseny Sevastianov of Finland. And David O'Cady, winner of this title 2 years ago, was won the first rack against Haris Turtovac. All second round matches. Mohamed Soufi also in this round, leading 7-5 now against Christian Surdea. And Ko Ping Han, who we've been talking up quite a bit today, already a ranking event winner this year, but 5-4 down at the moment against Tang Ching Ting, as we get our first look at the break of Scott Frost.
Caught those way too thin. And it seems like to me, you know, every player, their first break is when they're subject to really maybe have their worst break of the match. Easy to get a little quick, a little tense. I think he shoots at this. Not the greatest from distance, and of course it can go wrong, but hard to push out. Safety doesn't appear so easy. So I think he attacks. Little fortunate on the miss. Usually when they hit it thick a little bit, just a hair of a let up. You hit a little thick with inside. Not sure what the plan is. Is he going to try and bleed the cue ball over behind the purple 5 maybe? Just slowly come off the right side. Of course, one of the best, his opponent, one of the best with the jump cues. So not sure what the shot is. Really don't see a whole lot besides that. Just like I said, come off the right side, a little bit of a high right ball. Now, is he trying to bank the 1 back down, maybe use the 3 to hold the cue ball? Watch out for the scratch in the upper right if so. Yeah, that's what I thought. He tried to use the 3, and there's just a lot going on with that shot. I do understand it. Maybe try and keep it a little more simple. Did he nick the 3 or did he just hug? Yeah, nick the 3. I thought that's what he was planning, but on the slick table, maybe that's the element that Scott's not used to.
Given how clinical Ko Pinier has been so far in this match, Scott Frost must be returning to his chair with a sinking feeling about what might be to come next.
And, you know, not playing as much, not certainly being in this setting very often in recent years. Ended up quite a bit short there. A good thing the pink has a few options. He can come down below it. But I was going to say, just as we talked about not long ago, or maybe it was Phil and I in the last match, because SVB won so quickly it's hard to keep up. But it's knowing how to overcome those little things, squeezing out little extra innings here and there. Maybe playing that safety a little more simply, knowing that Ko Pinier's probably going to have a safety in return, but it isn't going to be anything devastating like a scratch right there.
Since the current structure began with the World 9-Ball Tour and the ranking system, we've had all sorts of big and small events. This obviously one of the biggest, but a lot of other tournaments around the world from week to week with ranking points on offer to various levels. And in the 3 previous years of that, there are only 5 players who've won at least one ranking event in every one of those years. And Ko Pinier is among them. In fact, he's won 5 ranking tournaments in total. He won 2 last year. Beat Jeffrey Rodder to win the Lushan Open in July, and then in the last ranking final of the year in late December, he won in Shanghai, beating Aloysius Yap, who was on a real high at that time in the final. So he never seems to go very long without having a good tournament somewhere along the way.
Yeah, it just shows you that match in, match out, he's prepared and prepared between tournaments. Also, I think what it shows you is another thing that I knew years ago, but it wasn't as obvious to me, is the players these days truly love the game. I mean, they really love it. I mean, it's growing, and that makes you love it even more. But I think at times years ago, I could see players getting a little more burnout at times. I don't know, and maybe that's just an illusion or a mistake on my part. It just seems that way.
Well, Scott Frost broke off, but broke dry, and Ko Pinier has ended up winning that to restore his 5-rack advantage. It's now 6-1. Now, the winner of this match, which at the moment obviously looks very much like being Ko Pinier, will play the winner of the contest currently unfolding on table 4. That's Mateusz Sniegocki of Poland, who's been in the quarterfinals of this tournament in the past, against Marko Lisnic of Croatia, and Sniegocki has taken the opening rack there. Ko Ping Chung, the former US Open champion, and of course brother of Ko Pinier, is just getting started against Andrea Klasovic of Serbia. Emil Gangflow on the hill now, 8-3 up against the experienced Swiss player, Michael Schneider. Loh Ho Sum and Gary Wilson level again. Wilson's taken rack 12 to make it 6-all.
Well, I'm not sure. You know, I haven't watched enough snooker. You would know way better than myself, but when it comes to pool, you know, I feel like Gary's kind of like a little bulldog. You know, he's just got a lot of fight, it seems like to me, and even though it's not his main discipline, it's something he's going to keep fighting in regardless.
Yeah, that would be very similar to how he approaches snooker, both on and off the table, actually. The way he talks about himself and his own game, he's very defiant and always feels the need to prove himself. He's been doing that extremely well in snooker over the last couple of years, and when he's made his forays into pool, he's had quite a big impact in those as well. He's been to the last 16 in the past in Matchroom Open tournament play.
Well, the way Copigny has played this match, someone like SVB, not quite as impressive, but he's really had a number of different types of shots and strokes he had to kind of display. So it seems like all he wants is a good look. And he really doesn't mind taking on whatever he's given. Caught the 8 a little there. That's why the cue ball drifted to the rail. Now very straight. I don't know if he has any future going forward. Yeah, is he going to try and hit the top side of this and maybe try and play a soft safety behind the 6? Letting the 3 just kind of chip to the short rail and lay underneath that green 6. He's dead froze, so is he going to go straight up in the air with the back end of the cue? As close as proximity is here, if he's trying to draw this ball, I think he becomes maybe 40% to make the ball. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't like his chances. Yeah, that shot is so difficult. You know, if you just get a little air with the cue ball off the rail, percentage has changed to where I think you're a little favorite. But he may have been less than 40% even there, and I'm talking about anyone in the field. Boy, he hasn't left it easy for Scott, though, on the limited mistakes he's made. This is a shot, of course, but you can see the pink 4 on the other end, other side of the table. Oh, Scott's trying to go cheat this rail first going forward, and the slick table is not the one you want to have to try and attempt this shot. I think you got to just draw back here and take the cut. Go forward, maybe a hair rail first. Yeah, that's the thing on the slick table that happens so often.
I think he was illustrating there what he was trying to do. And so it's a chance for Copigny to stretch that lead still further, and while he attempts to do that, I'll let you know what's coming up next on the main table. I said there were 10 Bulgarians in the field. One of those, Spasian Spasov, will be next up against Pius Labutas of Lithuania, who got to another big Matchroom semi-final last year and a couple of finals in ranking events. And credit to you, Jeremy, because I remember you talking a lot about Labutas about 2, 3, 4 years ago and really rating him very highly, and you've been proved right. He's had a lot of good events over the last 18 months or so. So what was it that you saw in him a couple of years ago, before he'd really established himself, that convinced you he had a lot of potential in the game?
Well, I just liked his cueing first off, and I always thought he was a player that put in a lot of effort. I think that was maybe the difference in the last year and a half, maybe putting in more effort between tournaments. And I just liked his concentration, his focus. And, you know, the little bit I did talk to him or maybe watched him at times, even after a loss, he was assessing and not trying to beat himself up and really just trying to move on with it. I think that's what it takes out here. It's a tough tour. You know, how many often, right? What was it, last year, the start of last year? We all had to pick out a breakout player. And, you know, I picked Emil, and then we just talked about him at the opening of this match to where, you know, he didn't have the year he had last year as he had before, and that's just how tough it is out here, where I thought Pius, unlike maybe some of the other younger players, would take everything a little better and a little more patient. And I thought that would serve a good purpose for his game moving forward.
Yeah, and it's like any of these sports. You see a lot of players who come through and have one decent event and then they never really follow it up, or it certainly takes them a very long time. That was crucial for Labutas. He got to a semi-final in Spain in the summer of 23, but then it wasn't that long before he got to another one, and that's always the big thing, isn't it? If you can do it again, then that suggests there's someone who can go on and have a consistent level of good tournaments. As I said, he got to a couple of other finals and decent sized events last year, so certainly one to keep an eye on in 25. Copigny, of course, has been doing it at this level for a long time, and he's very much on top here, although that has not gone quite the way he would have hoped.
No, we'll see a push out situation. While I say that, we have a look here. There maybe a decent little kick and stick right here that where he doesn't have to push out. I don't know if he can get past the ping 4 enough to try and, yeah, that's what he's looking at now. some type of rail first shot off the left long rail. Maybe trying to make this ball, actually. And he really is one of the best at the rail first shot. It would probably be a push out of some type of kick shot anyways. Yeah, he's going with a high English, so he's trying to make it. And again, off the miss, he's not going to leave anything easy for Scott. Of course, Scott has had a couple chances, 2 scratches he'd like to have back. Neither of them rather, easy scenarios. So we've had 5 matches, right, on this table. This is match number 6, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, that is spot on, yeah.
Yeah, and I think we still don't have 7 racks won by the 5 losing opponents, and the opponent in this match losing as well. I believe that's right. Only 6 racks won through the first 4 matches by
I get you, yeah.
the losing opponent. And then SVB won 9-0. So that's still at 6 racks, and now here in the 6th match, the not so good side of things have only won 7 racks through 5 matches, and looking near the close of this 5th match as well. Excuse me, 6th match. Well, day makes a difference sometimes, doesn't it, Michael?
Yeah, we had some pretty one-sided matches on this table yesterday, but a lot of close finishes as well.
Well, Phil had asked me what I thought about it, and I think maybe it being day 2, those favorites got an extra day to get a little more practice in, maybe get acclimated, maybe see some close matches from day 1 that they didn't like seeing or didn't want to have to go through themselves. So maybe a little more focused than some of our players in day 1. And then again, it could just be simply shots after the break. You know, guys are making balls but not getting shots after the break maybe on day 1, and or here we've seen a ton of break and runs so far on table 1.
Scott Frost looking on there, but let's not forget he will still have a match, at least one, to come. He'll go to the loser's side and he will play Nikola Solomonovic of Serbia, assuming of course he doesn't pull off a miraculous recovery. And with that, Ko Pin-Yi does indeed get to the hill at 8-1. Not going so well for his brother though, either of them in fact, because Ko Ping-chung is currently 2-0 down against Andrea Klasovic of Serbia. And problems also for Ko Ping-han, who's won a ranking event already this year, but 8-4 down at the moment against Kang Ching-ting. Mohamed Soufi still looking for that one more. He leads Christian Surdea 8-5. All of these are also second round matches. David Al-Kaidi, champion of 2 years ago in the European Open, 2-1 up on Haris Turtovac. And Arseny Sevastyanov, who got off to a really good start against Moritz Neuhausen, had it turned around, but has responded well, because he's drawn level now with the former World Cup finalist at 7-all. Gary Wilson putting on a late burst. He's on the hill at 8-6 against Loh Ho Sum. And not sure we gave you the result from Emil Gangflow, but he has won 9-3 now against Michael Schneider, and will face the defending champion Mickey Kraus in the next round. Mateusz Sniegocki leading 2-0 against Marko Lisnic of Croatia. Remember, the winner of that will play the winner of this one, which at the moment looks like being Ko Pin-Yi, because he only needs one more to advance.
All right, Scott's going to have a chance to get the arm a little more loose. Much easier starter than he's had most of the match. He's got to thread the needle, though. 2 doesn't pass the 7. I don't think he's got to go up table. Maybe 2 cushions between the 3 and 8, coming back down with a blue 2 in the upper left. He's queuing downward. Can he cheat this enough to draw straight? I think he's got to go up table. This ball's sitting on the top side of the pocket, and we talk about these side pockets on these diamond tables. Very difficult. Good hold up for the bank on the 2. Yeah, I thought that was always going to be hard to cheat. He wanted to draw that cue ball, but on the other side of the blue 2. So.
Ko Pin-Yi racing round, eager to get stuck in again, looking to see if he's on the 2, and this is a chance for him to get it finished. It's been a difficult few weeks for Scott Frost. He's had a family bereavement to deal with, so didn't come to this event, this big overseas adventure, as well prepared as he would have liked. But he's won a match, and he'll have a chance to win another one on the loser's side and see where he goes from there.
Yeah, can't get a lot getting back on the 7 with the black 8 somewhat in the way of this path coming across the table. So gonna have to come somewhat high on this right side rail. Like to get off that second cushion though. Got about the most out of it he could.
Well, it's hard to judge a great deal from a match like this. Ko Pin-Yi hasn't been put under any great deal of pressure. Scott Frost did manage to get one on the board. It came in the 6th rack. But all in all, it's been very, very efficient from the world champion of 10 years ago. Ko Pin-Yi has defeated Scott Frost by 9 racks to 1.